And so they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be righteous, that they might seize on his words, in order to deliver him to the power and the authority of the governor. And then they asked him, saying, Teacher, we know that you say and teach rightly, and you do not show favoritism, but you teach the way of God in truth. Doesn't that sound so sweet? This is what I call a liar's sandwich. They butter both sides of the bread, both sides, but in between, it's filled with venom. It's a trap, it's a trick. And they come off at the beginning saying nice words, and they're going to say some nice words at the very end, but they're trying to trap him. These are those pretending to be righteous, and they come up with a question that sounds pretty good. Here it is. Is it lawful for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Now, this is a question we ask all of us around this time of the year. Right? Do we really need to be doing this? Do we really need to be paying this much? They want more taxes for what? We always struggle with it. But there's something fundamental we know about society, and we've known about all societies since the beginning, and that is taxation is important for societies to run. Without taxes, governments can't function. However, having said that, the people of Israel felt absolutely crushed by the Roman form of taxation. And we've gone into depth. We don't need to do that again. I think I even did it last week. So talking about taxes was a volatile subject, a hot button topic. So they just simply ask a simple question. Is it lawful? Is it right? Is it righteous? Is it good? You, a man of God, to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Now, the reason that we pay taxes, the same reason they pay taxes, was for the services given to them. The Roman government required lots of money because the Roman government provided something no other government had provided for the world up until that time. And number one, it was a road system. It's amazing to me, really. I mean, these are the things that just, I look at and go, wow. It's been 2 millennia, 2,000 years since the Romans built roads. They still exist today. I know streets in Albuquerque after a couple years that are just so beat up, they're unrecognizable. It's been 2,000 years, and many of those roads, 55,000 miles of roads in 700 years of building to connect different parts of the world to each other out of solid stone. Well, that costs money to do that. It provides a lot. It provides goods and services and lots of imports and exports. A lot of money to be made, but it costs a lot of money, and that's where taxes come in. Bridges, aqueducts, many of which are still in existence to this day, public buildings. And there was something called the Pax Romana. You know, the Middle East has always been an uproar, but ancient Israel and that part of the world never had sustained peace until Rome came in with its vast Roman armies and brought in an enforced peace. That's the only way peace could ever happen over there. It has to be by force. So wherever you would look, not far away were Roman soldiers, and what were they doing? They were peacekeepers. They would make sure that decorum was kept and that nobody went over the law, and it was that Roman force that kept the peace. Well, all of that cost taxes. Why did they ask this question? Because they want to divide the crowd. They want to get Jesus in trouble either with the crowd or with the government. If Jesus were to say, yes, it's perfectly good and it's right to pay taxes to Caesar, immediately the people are going to turn against him, they think, and the Pharisees certainly are going to turn against him. They hate Rome. If Jesus were to say, nope, you don't have to pay taxes to Caesar, forget about it, don't even go there, then the Herodians and the Roman government, Pontius Pilate and the others, they're going to be breathing down his throat, so they feel they have a catch-22. They've asked the perfect question. Is it lawful to pay taxes or not? Verse 23, but he perceived their craftiness and said to them, why do you test me? Show me a denarius. Now, a denarius was a single silver coin, and it was minted under the authority of the emperor of Rome. Did you know that the emperor was the only one who could allow the minting of gold or silver coins? And it was a single silver coin on one side of a denarius. A denarius, by the way, was the equivalent of a day's wage for a laborer or a soldier. On one side of a denarius was an image of Caesar. On the other side of the coin was a picture of him reclining on sort of a lounge chair with the robes of a priest. And so he said, show me a denarius. Whose image and inscription does it have? And they answered and they said, Caesar's. Now, I don't know if you caught this or not, but he says, whose image is on this? You know the second commandment, right? You shall have no images. And you know that to a Jewish person, an Orthodox Jewish person, all imagery, all images, not just of God, but even of people, are prohibited. So to have an image of Caesar that they have carrying around with them and they have to pay taxes for it is doubly insulting, because it means they have to always be breaking the second commandment and pay taxes to Caesar. Listen, they so abhorred images that Pontius Pilate, on 2 different occasions, got into trouble because he brought in images into Jerusalem. Once he brought in ensigns with an image of Caesar on it, and all of the Jews protested, went to visit him in Caesarea, and demanded that he take those ensigns down, those banners down. He said, I'm not going to do it. We're Rome. You can't boss us around. And so he herded all of those protesting Jews into the theater in Caesarea and said, if you don't shut up, we're going to kill you right now. We're going to slice your throats open. He was not expecting what happened next. When he threatened to kill them and cut their throats, they all lay down on the ground, pulled their shirt, their toga down, and said, go ahead. They bare their necks to the sword. And now Pilate realized these fanatical Jews are willing to die over this whole image thing. Now, I don't want to get in trouble with Caesar, so I'll just remove the images. A few years later, to honor Tiberius Caesar, he had gold shields put into the Antonia fortress in Jerusalem, his own palace. The Jews protested. He refused to take them down. They sent a letter directly to Caesar, and Caesar wrote him a letter and said, get rid of those shields. So Pilate is on thin ice with them and even with Rome. But here's Jesus. He holds up this coin with an image on it. The Jews hated images. He said, whose image is on this? Whose inscription? They said, Caesar's. He said to them, here's his answer. Then give or render, therefore, to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. There's 2 parts to that answer. Part number 1, we have an earthly obligation. Part number 2, we have a heavenly obligation. We have an earthly obligation to give taxes to Caesar, to give taxes to the government, because taxes belong to the domain of Caesar. His face is on it, his mugshot is on it, give it to him. It's his. He minted it, give it back to him. He wants it, give it to him. Now, if you've read your Bible, you know that there's 2 places in the New Testament that are very, very overt and distinct about this. One is Romans chapter 13, and the other is 1 Peter chapter 2 that says, be submissive to governmental authorities. It goes as far as to say kings and governors, and we would put presidents and prime ministers and mayors and the police force, all stand in the place of God. But it gets worse. He says, if you defy them and you don't show honor and respect to them and you don't pay them whatever they say their due is, you are dishonoring God. That's what Paul said. And that's what Peter said. So Jesus says two things. Caesar has a right to collect your tax, but God has a right to collect your worship. Caesar has the right to your revenue. God has the right to your reverence. You have to give a portion of your money to Caesar. You have to give all of yourself to God. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Give to God what belongs to him. But they could not catch him in his words in the presence of the people. And they marveled at his answer. And they kept silent. Good move.